Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing another important question from the series of Shakespeare. And the question is write a note on Shakespeare's historical plays. Before discussing the question, let me brief you that this channel is dedicated to all those students who are preparing for their HPSC PGT exam, subject knowledge test, UPSC, RPSC, and other states exam. This channel is dedicated to all those students who are preparing for their UG and PG exam. Dear students, here we are discussing each and every question in detail so that you will be able to write your answer in exam perfectly well. You already know it's a matter of harsh criticism that students they don't know, even they have qualified net and they are JRF, they are PhD holders, but they don't know how to write answers. So in many of the states we have got this news that students they don't know how to write answer descriptively. So here we will discuss all the answers in that way that will help for you to write the answers in a very detailed way, and you will cover all the main points in your answer. So let us discuss today's question. Write a note on Shakespeare's historical plays. So Shakespeare wrote 10 plays dealing with the history of seven kings of England. They cover 350 years from 1200 to 1550. Here you can find dates can be little bit change here from the book which I have prepared. The date is given this. So they cover 350 years, which the all the historical plays they cover the period of 350 years from 1200 to 1550. Their titles are given here under Richard III, the three parts of Henry VI, Richard II, the two parts of Henry IV, King John, Henry V, Henry VIII, which he wrote with the help of Fletcher. So these all are the 10 plays, including three parts and two parts. 10 plays he wrote the story of seven kings. So these all are based upon the history of England. They are not merely the pages of history, they are the works of art like other plays of Shakespeare. So Shakespeare wrote in this way that they were not giving only the mark of the history, they were showing his spirit of art making. These plays are a product as well as expression of the feeling of patriotism which was intensified in the Elizabethan England by her continual war with Spain, which culminated in the celebrated defeat of Spanish Armada in 1588. You already know that when Queen Elizabeth she sat on throne, immediately she found that she won this Spanish war, and people they were so happy to get a lucky queen there on the reignship of England. So in this way, the war was ended, and all his historical plays were written from 1588 to 1598. So 10 years span he wrote all the historical plays when the patriotic feeling were at the highest peak. Shakespeare borrowed the historical framework of all his historical plays almost exclusively from the Chronicles of Holinshed. Holinshed, you already know, this is a book written by Raphael Holinshed on the history of England. So, this was the historical book which was giving the knowledge of history of England, and Shakespeare works were all based upon this work. One of the Shakespeare's major aims in writing history plays was to make Englishmen proud of being Englishmen. So the feeling of patriotism was to make them arouse the feeling of patriotism. These all plays were dedicated. Dying John of Gaunt in Richard II showed glowing tribute to England, praise of England with these words. So, in the work of Richard II, John of Gaunt, the dying John of Gaunt, she was writing, she was praising England in this way and intensified the feeling of patriotism among readers. This royal throne of king, this captured isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars. In the same vein, Henry Fifth words before her fluor are of the same nature. And you, good yeoman, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the metal of your pasture, let us wear. These historical plays were thus not only a product of the patriotic, they were also calculated to infuse patriotic spirit to others. If Shakespeare is moved by patriotic impulse, it doesn't mean that he represents each and every English king as a hero of impeccable character. So, impeccable means he did not show all the characters perfectly well. He showed some faults there in them. So, Shakespeare's plays were not only giving the knowledge of history, they were also like that he was showing his talent of writing plays. Shakespeare's heroes can be divided into two classes: King John, Richard II, and Henry VI. They were shown as the embody the weakness of English king. So they were shown as they were weak English kings, and on the other hand, Henry IV and Henry V, Richard III, they were showed as they were having the kingly strength. Like here, I have given all the detail. John is the royal criminal, weak in criminality. Henry VI is the royal saint, weak in saintliness. The feebleness of Richard II can't be described in words. So, on the other hand, he is a gracious, sentimental monarch. So, how these characters, these kings are shown there in the play. So, on those basis, we can say that if John was a royal criminal, but he was weak in criminality, so he was shown a royal king, royal criminal, but he was very weak in this way, and the same way the next two characters. And now let's talk about who the kings who were strong in strength and they were very uh, enough. They were having the enough strength. Like here, Richard III is strong in crime and strong in his crime nature. Henry IV, the usurping Bolingbroke, is strong by a fine craft in dealing with events, by resolution and policy, by equal caution and daring. So this is the important thing about Henry IV, that Henry IV is also called Bolingbroke as he was born there in Bolingbroke and Lancasters. He was the beginner from the line of Lancaster. So in this way we can say this is the important thing about Henry IV. The strength of Henry V is that of plain historic magnitude. If we talk about Henry V, so Henry V was very high magnitude. He had very high magnitude, thoroughly sound and substantial. Means he was considerable, very important. So these three writers here, these three kings were very strong in strength and these were very weak in strength, and yes, Shakespeare has shown them in this way in the plays. Shakespeare's historical plays are thus, to borrow the words of Schlegel. You already know that the Schlegel was the German literary critic and philosopher. So if we talk about, so the words a mirror for kings, these are the words spoken by Schlegel dedicated to Shakespeare's historical plays. Shakespeare's artistic genius was a dramatist, not a historian. To make his historical plays, interesting. He manipulated history many times. Shakespeare had to uh, Shakespeare had to reconcile the fact of history with the form of drama, because he was a dramatist, he was a playwright, so he had to focus over his talent of writing plays. So he somewhere he manipulated history. Just because of his dramatic genius, he became a famous historical writer than Marlowe, Peel, and Green. In Shakespeare's historical plays, the dead part, ranging from 1200 to 1550, comes vivid and breathing with life. So the time of 1200 to 1550, you already know the period was already very drab, dull, dry, and dreadful. But with Shakespeare's plays, we found that these plays got a light, a brightness. Even if he has falsified history a little, he has at least vivified it. So he has presented the history of this period in a very elaborated way, though he falsified history, which no historian could or possibly can. So, in this way, we have done. Now, let's take the conclusion. So, history is a vast tragicomedy. So are Shakespeare's history plays. In them, Shakespeare doesn't merely aim at giving a flat picture of history, he rather gives it a new breath and a new life by admitting scenes of low life. As Walter Raleigh observes, he ventured to intermix the treatment of high political affairs with familiar pictures of daily life. So, in this way, with the critical court, we have covered the conclusion, and in this way, we have completed this answer. I hope this answer has been understood by you, and thoroughly you will be able to write all these points in your answer. Thank you, students.
Stay with